Arif never believed the stories about the Kuntilanak that people in his village whispered about during late evenings. To him, these legends were only meant to scare children into returning home before dark. But on the night he arrived back from the city, tired and frustrated from work, he felt something different in the air. The breeze that passed through the narrow dirt road was colder than usual, carrying a faint floral scent that didn't belong to the countryside. The moon hung low, barely illuminating the twisted silhouettes of palm trees lining the path, as his motorcycle engine hummed steadily. He started to notice the eerie silence around him. No insects, no rustling leaves, nothing. It felt as if the forest itself was holding its breath, watching him, waiting. His grandmother's warning echoed in his mind. If you smell frangipani at night, don't look back, or she will follow you home. Arif brushed off the thought, telling himself it was nothing but superstition. Still, uneasiness crawled under his skin, making him accelerate slightly. The air grew heavier, pressing against his chest, making each breath feel thick. Then, faintly, almost too soft to be real, he heard a woman crying somewhere in the darkness beside the road. At first, he thought his mind was playing tricks on him after such a long and exhausting journey. But the sound came again clearer, this time soft sobs weaving through the still night. His hands tensed on the handlebars. The stories he ignored for years suddenly didn't seem so childish anymore. The crying grew louder, and despite every instinct screaming at him to keep going, Arif slowed his motorcycle. Something about the sound felt painfully human, fragile, broken, desperate, the kind of cry that made you feel guilty for ignoring it. As he stopped, the forest seemed to inhale sharply, as if anticipating his next move. The scent of frangipani became stronger, drifting through the wind and settling heavily in the air around him. He shook his head, frustrated with himself for letting fear creep in. Maybe someone needs help, he muttered quietly, though his voice trembled slightly. He switched off the engine, plunging himself into absolute silence. No lights from passing vehicles, no signs of nearby houses, just endless rows of palm trees, and the faint silver glow of the moon, struggling to break through the thick canopy. With a small flashlight from his bag, he stepped off the bike. The crying stopped. The sudden silence was deafening, as if sound itself had been swallowed by the darkness. Arif's heartbeat echoed loudly in his ears, each thump reminding him of how alone he truly was. He swept the flashlight across the terrain, revealing nothing but uneven ground and clusters of trees. "Is anyone there?" he called out. No answer, only the whisper of wind brushing against dry leaves. Just as he was about to dismiss it all as imagination, the crying returned, this time directly behind him, close enough to raise every hair on his body. But he refused to turn around. His grandmother's warning tightened around his thoughts like a vice. Something cold grazed the back of his neck, and the crying shifted into laughter, soft, feminine, and chillingly familiar. Arif forced himself to walk forward, refusing to look back no matter how strong the urge became. The flashlight flickered repeatedly, as though protesting the heavy presence closing in around him. The laughter behind him deepened into a low, echoing giggle, the kind that made the bones in his spine vibrate with dread. His legs grew stiff, trembling slightly with each cautious step. He reminded himself that fear was just a sensation, not a threat, but the thought did little to calm him. Then he noticed something strange. The forest ahead seemed to shift, as if a shadow was moving between the trees. It was tall, slender, and swayed slowly, almost rhythmically, like a figure standing in a breeze he couldn't feel. Arif blinked hard, hoping it was just a trick of the moonlight. But when he lifted the flashlight again, the figure was gone. The crying resumed, this time to his left, followed immediately by the sound of branches snapping under invisible weight. The forest, once quiet, now pulsed with unnatural life. It felt as if something was circling him, studying him. His breath quickened, fogging the cold air. And then, for a brief moment, he saw her just a glimpse. Long, black hair flowing unnaturally, covering most of her face. A white dress stained with dirt, torn at the edges. Her head tilted slightly, as if she was listening to his heartbeat. She floated, not walked. In a blink, she vanished behind a cluster of palm trees. Arif stumbled backward, struggling to grasp the reality of what he had seen. But before he could collect himself, her soft voice whispered right beside his ear, "Why did you stop?" Arif darted toward his motorcycle with everything he had. Panic surged through him like wildfire, burning away every ounce of logic or calmness he tried to maintain. He fumbled with the keys, hands shaking uncontrollably as he tried to restart the engine. Every second felt like an eternity, especially with the unmistakable presence hovering behind him. He refused to look back, but he could feel her close, too close. The scent of frangipani overwhelmed him, thick and suffocating. The engine sputtered, as if suffocated by the same unseen force pressing on his chest. Come on," he whispered desperately. Then the engine roared to life. Arif didn't waste another breath. He shot forward, gravel flying under the tires. The disappointment in her voice echoed behind him as he sped away. "Why are you running?" Arif, hearing his name, nearly made him lose control of the bike. The forest blurred on either side as he raced down the narrow dirt path. But the chilling reality remained. He hadn't told her his name. She wasn't just any spirit. She knew him. The crying began again, but now it followed him. The more he accelerated, the louder the crying became, shifting into screeching laughter that reverberated inside his skull. His vision blurred from fear, but he didn't dare slow down. Then, suddenly, something white flashed in front of him. He swerved violently, narrowly avoiding the figure that had appeared directly in his path. The bike skidded sideways, throwing him onto the ground. Pain shot through his shoulder and knees, but adrenaline forced him back to his feet. He turned toward the fallen motorcycle but froze. She was standing next to it, not floating, not hiding, standing, waiting, smiling with blood-stained teeth peeking through her hair. Her smile was the kind that didn't belong to anything living, twisted too far, stretched too wide. Arif's breath halted as she slowly lifted her head, revealing pale skin and dark, hollow eyes staring directly into his. Her hair cascaded like a curtain of night, swaying gently as though stirred by invisible hands. "You shouldn't have stopped for me," she whispered, her voice layered with sorrow and malice. Arif backed away, step by trembling step, unable to look away from the terrifying figure before him. She moved toward him, not walking, but gliding, her feet hovering slightly above the ground. The soft crying returned, leaking through her smile, as if two voices lived inside, her one weeping, one laughing. The combination twisted Arif's stomach into knots. "Leave me alone," he managed to choke out, though his voice trembled pathetically. She tilted her head sharply, like an animal trying to understand its prey. "But you heard me. You cared enough to stop." Her words echoed unnaturally, bouncing between the trees. Arif turned and ran, ignoring the stabbing pain in his legs. Branches slapped against his face and arms as he forced his way through the dense forest. Not knowing where he was going, only knowing he had to get away. But running didn't help. The crying followed, the laughter followed, and then, impossibly, her voice came from the darkness ahead of him. "You can't leave." Arif skidded to a halt. She was standing 10 meters in front of him, though he had left her behind a moment ago. Panic clawed at his throat. Her form flickered like a flame caught in the wind. She was playing with him, hunting him, and every step he took only brought her closer. His lungs burned as he tried to catch his breath, but the air felt suffocating, heavy with the scent of frangipani. Arif stumbled backward, tripping over exposed roots. He hit the ground hard, the impact knocking the air from his chest. Above him, the Kuntilanak hovered, her white dress billowing as though underwater. She leaned forward slowly, her long fingers stretching toward his face. Her nails were sharp, blackened, and unnaturally long. "I've been waiting for someone who would listen," she whispered. Her breath was cold, carrying the scent of decaying flowers. Arif squeezed his eyes shut, praying silently, hoping somehow she would vanish if he refused to see her. But she didn't. He felt her cold fingers brush his cheek lightly, almost tenderly. Then she let out a sudden, piercing scream directly into his ear. The sound was so powerful, so sharp, that he clamped his hands over his ears in agony. The scream felt like shards of glass tearing into his skull. He rolled to the side, grabbing a fallen branch and swinging it blindly. When he opened his eyes, she was gone. Or at least, she wasn't where she had been. The forest went quiet, again unnervingly quiet. Arif staggered to his feet, clutching his pounding head. Every shadow looked like her. Every sound felt like the start of another cry. He tried to find his way back to the road, stumbling through the darkness. But the forest felt endless, twisting unnaturally, as if deliberately guiding him deeper instead of out. He could feel her watching him, observing, waiting for him to break.